guys, Desolator Magic here, and just when you thought that Wizards couldn't come up with any worse ideas to ruin the game, oh, here we go. So at Grand Prix London, which is already stomping on the toes of every store that could possibly hold a pre-release ever, they are going to be testing a new Mulligan type, because they totally didn't just change that like 2 years ago. So quick history on that, the Mulligan rule used to be start with 7, mull to 6, mull to 5, mull to 4 at the end. Well, hell, let's go further back. Way back in the day, 20 plus years ago, you could only mulligan if you had all lands or no lands. If you had a one-lander, you're keeping it. There basically were almost no mulligans. Between then and approximately 2 years ago, I don't know, maybe it changed a couple times, I wasn't playing. But basically, they added the Scry 1. So if you mulligan, you get an automatic Scry 1 after already deciding to keep or not. And that just added a tiny little subtle advantage to even things out, because a mull to 6 would usually be a death sentence. You were so less likely to win, it was comical, and the entire opening hand thing was based on luck, not skill, at all. I mean, besides if you built a crappy deck with bad math behind it. I don't think I saw one single member of the community, pro or casual, that was against that idea. It was so subtle, and it only affected people if they already kind of were in need of a bailout. Since it's only Scry 1 and it's only after, it's pretty much just a land fixer. I mean, it could not be, but at that level, and because you mulled to 6 or lower, it is almost always, is it a land or is it not a land, and that makes the decision. Not always, but extremely commonly. Now, if somebody were to say, well, that's not good enough to even things out, that is correct. It mathematically is not. The game is still tilted heavily in the favor of the person who kept 7, assuming that it was a proper, good, appropriate keep. Well, word is the pros were complaining about it not going far enough, and just random opening hands not being good enough, and them losing entire games, entire tournaments, entire prize packages, just because of bad opening hands, and the one Scry not making up for it. And yeah, getting luck screwed that early in the game does take an awful lot of decision-making and skill completely out of it. So to feel like something's left up to chance instead of player skill, they really want to focus on skill lately. In fact, Wizards said that. They came out and said they want player decisions and dynamicness and, like, wisdom in what to do properly to control more of the game than just luck. Because honestly, there's too many luck games out there and they're just stupid and boring. And the article that they stated that in, by the way, was why they're focusing on so many modal spells, which is ones where they say do this, or choose 2 out of the 4, or something like that. They said that was why they designed that, because they wanted more decisions and less, like, card draw. And, well, that's literally what it is. So it makes sense that they want to take the luck of the opening hand out and put more skill into it, even though the highest level of skill comes from deciding to mulligan or not. It is the hardest thing to do in the game, and it is what most people get wrong the most, and you're probably not mulliganing enough in general. So there is skill there, but still, any mulligan situation comes about because of bad draw luck, so it's really both. So at the upcoming GP London, or Magic Fest London, or Mythic Championship London, or whatever the hell they're calling it at this point, they're going to be testing something, well, I can't say new, but, yeah, they're going to be testing something. So let me just read what they wrote. For Mythic Championship 2 in London, so, like, not the Grand Prix? Are they even separate? Whatever. Sometime at something in London, we're going to be trying out a new mulligan rule that we have been playtesting internally for some time. Well, gee, Wizards, that sounds promising, because your playtesting department has proven time and time again that they can't even find their own ass with both hands. So we believe the new rule smooths out opening hand decisions even more, though it certainly has some implications for formats like Modern. Yeah, I'm not even going to save this for the end. Don't do it in Modern. That's crazy. The rule we'll be testing in London is as such. When you mulligan for the nth time, you draw 7 cards, then put n cards on the bottom of your library in any order. So for example, let's say you're taking your second mulligan of a game, what we often call a mulligan to 5. You would draw 7 cards, select 2, and place those 2 on the bottom of your library in any order. Then you would decide whether to keep or mulligan again. Let me just stop you right there. Why the hell would you put them on the bottom of your library, then decide to mulligan? Wouldn't you just say, yeah, all 7 of these are crap no matter which 2 I get rid of, and then shuffle them back in your library and mull to 4? Seems like a bit of a logical issue there, but anyway, you guys get it. So you still start with 5, you just get to look at and potentially keep, basically like 6 or 5 or 4. So that would be like the current mulligan rule, except multiplied by the number of times you mulliganed, And instead of scrying, you can take the cards from the top of your library and swap them out one for one with a different card in your hand. So to say that this is a bit more effective, a bit more powerful, yeah, that's a bit of an understatement. So they go on to say, while we have been testing this Mulligan rule internally for a while, we are treating this tournament as a test. Once our game designers have reviewed the tournament, spoken to players, and looked at the data, we'll decide whether to implement the Mulligan rule wider. So obviously they've already made up their mind, although they might not implement it for Modern, in case you didn't read between the lines there. And unless everybody hates it, they're going to implement it. Oh, but wait, they're only talking to pro players, not casuals, but they're going to implement this for all casuals. The other 99.9% of the community, without asking them. Well, in case you haven't noticed, pro players play a little bit differently, have different goals and different expectations, and they like to complain a lot, and they also like their degenerate decks to work way too consistently. So asking them should be the last thing they ever do. Also, you'd have to be pretty damn ignorant about how the game works to not realize that this completely, ridiculously favors combo decks. In fact, don't take my word for it, allegedly, back in the day, I don't know exactly when, Wizards experimented with this exact type of mulligan, and it was rejected because it made combo decks too consistent. So, at the upcoming London event, I assume since it's a Mythic Championship 2 or whatever its standard format, I didn't check, why wouldn't it be? So let's see, what decks would this completely unfairly favor? Let me think of all the combo decks in standard right now. Yep, that's all of them. I think I just listed them all off. Now, a combo deck by definition is basically 2 or 3 cards come together and wreck the entire game. They just do something degenerate and overpowered, everybody hates them, and they're so boring, they're binary conditions, you either stop them or you don't, and if they're too glass cannon, as they say, they fire once and then shatter and they can't reload. So they either win or they don't, they either get the combo off or you stop them, and that's the game. Very, very, very boring. I'm glad that there's really no combo decks in standard right now. And I mean, there's not none. I've seen Omniscience decks that combo into some weird draw thing, and like, I guess the Thran Temporal Gateway-ish, maybe Muldrotha, but like they're so slow and so expensive. But they do have these cards that all cascade into each other and trigger together and combo off each other, and boom, they just drop the hammer. So there's very few of them, and they're not very competitive. So at this tournament, everybody's going to say, this is fine, yay, it dug me out of such a bad opening hole, oh, it's the greatest thing ever, and it's going to turn out to be the worst damn thing they've ever done to the game. They determined this last time, because the last time they studied this, combo decks were huge. Or at least that's what I've been told, and so they decided not to implement it. So why are they making the same mistake twice? I mean, that's one question. They already determined this is crap. And honestly, the only deck I think that this would make too consistent is a Johnny's Pridemate, because you could say that that's a combo deck, and if I start the game with a Johnny versus when I don't, it's like playing 2 different decks. Like, I will just run you over with a Johnny in my opening hand and a couple life gain sources. And if not, okay, it's just a kind of control-y, tricky, little ambushy white rush deck, nothing special. That's the closest we get. And like I said, if you're running like an 8 or 9 or even 6 cost like combo piece, it doesn't really matter if it's in your opening hand. You almost wouldn't want it to be. So we're talking about early combos. Felidar and Saheeli, which was banned, by the way, because that was an infinite combo. This Mulligan rule would have made that deck unbeatable. I mean, the deck was already obnoxious, but it would have been so stupidly consistent. And that's an extreme example, but even going back to like Theros, I mean, just putting like Grey Merchant of Asphodel in your opening hand. And it's not even combo decks, it's just taking overpowered broken cards that cost 3 or less and putting them in your opening hand, maybe even up to 4 mana cost, I'd say. And basically this new Mulligan rule, putting them in your opening hand way more often than they naturally would get there, it's going to amplify the power and the prevalence of stupid, obnoxious cards, like, what is Burning Gates? I don't remember the damn card. I don't play that stupid deck. Basically, any 3 or 4 cost Planeswalker, if you can put that in your opening hand artificially, ooh, that's rough. So it will silently make all decks a little bit better, and I think we can all agree right now that in Standard, none of the top decks need to get any better. They all need to get about 1 banned card worse. I mean, even just any blue deck, almost guaranteeing that you'll have a counter spell in your opening hand because you drew to 7, drew to 7, drew to 7, and then dropped everything that wasn't a counter spell or whatever. Or even just a cheap board wipe, like a Kaya's Wrath. You could not put that on the bottom of your library. And I'm not saying like it's a guaranteed absolute ticket to always have one in your opening hand. I mean, you're only drawing 7 instead of 6 or 5. But like 3 shots at it 7 each time is actually pretty high probability. So unlike the last Mulligan rule, I am completely 100% against this. The only change they should make, and honestly they should have done it this way in the first place, I don't know why they didn't, is if you mulled a 5, you get to scry 2, and if you mulled a 4, you get to scry 3. I mean, at that point, you're already gonna lose, you might as well give them some bonus scries. I mean, come on. Like, at least that'll maybe make their mana base kind of acceptable. So last time, virtually everybody in the community supported the change. It was wonderful, it was much needed in the game, and this time, pretty much nobody has anything nice to say about it except for whiny pro players. And that's who they're going to listen to and ask. So I would say it's a foregone conclusion. They are going to implement this. Everybody's going to hate it. It's going to drive people away. It's going to make people quit the game. It's going to make abusive decks even more abusive. It's going to make control decks way too good, which they're already too good. It's going to make combo decks come back or just be worse the next time they're a thing. It is going to be absolutely terrible, and then they'll have to go back on it, and they don't like to go back on things, according to Mark Rosewater, because then they basically are admitting that they're wrong. So they will stick with it until they don't have a customer left. So make sure that you get on social media, like one that Wizards either can't block you or you don't care if they do, and tell them what a bad idea this is. Because they did say they're speaking to the players. Well, if all they hear on every social media constantly is, this is terrible, this is going to make combo decks too good, this is going to change what people build, they will have to take that into consideration. So hopefully they end up saying, no, it didn't work, but in the standard meta now and asking only pro players, I can't imagine why this wouldn't get passed, basically. So it's really a shame that just even at a basic level, they can't just stand back for 1 second after somebody recommends this and say, not only did we reject it once in the past, but this is just stupid. This is just a stupidly bad idea, and this would be way too powerful. So please do let them know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.